Good afternoon. Welcome to CC Power's board meeting, August 16. I'm Girish Balachandran, and I'll call the meeting to order. Brittany, would you verify that we have a meeting quorum, please?
Yes, I can verify that there is a quorum present.
Great. It has not been brought to my attention that there are any matters subsequent to posting the agenda. So we'll move to item 4, which is public comment. Do we have any public comment? I don't see any hands raised. So I'm going to come back to the consent agenda, and ask if any of the board members want to remove an item from the consent calendar. And if not, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Thank you, Matthew and Mitch. Appreciate that. Any discussion? Public comment? All right, Brittany, please take it to vote.
Okay, for the consent agenda, Pearl Coast Community Energy,
Approved.
Clean Power SF, Mike, I don't think we can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Okay, approved.
thank you.
Sorry about that.
East Bay Community Energy, believe is absent. Peninsula Clean Energy,
Approved.
okay. Redwood Coast Energy Authority,
Yes.
San Jose Clean Energy, I believe is absent. Silicon Valley Clean Energy,
Yes.
Sonoma Clean Power Authority,
Yes.
and Valley Clean Energy.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent agenda passes.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the regular agenda, and we have the general manager's report. We have 5 sections to his report. We're going to have the general manager speak to each one of them, and then we'll ask the board for comments, questions that we have of the general manager, then go to public comment for each one of those items, and then move on through the 5. Alex, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Balachandran. Hi, everybody, and thanks for joining today. I appreciate your time and stewardship of CC Power. What we'll cover in the GM report is 5 items that should give you a feel for important work that's going on, much of which is pursuant to your direction and pursuant to the strategic plan. And I do think this is a chance for us to discuss some of the items so that as I implement, I have more visibility to your input there. So, and we're also going to share some slides. No decisions are being made here, as there's no voting items, but so that there's just some materials that will help you get a feel for it. And Amy, if possible, can we share those slides now? Thank you. Okay, so I'll walk us through, and Chair Balachandran, please interrupt as appropriate, okay? All right, next slide. So first I wanted to focus on this Getting It Built Right workshop. This is an important matter. Next slide, please, Amy, where with the help of many of the CCAs, we wanted to get stakeholders together to do an event. We're calling it a workshop because it's really a listening and public input session. It's informal and a safe space for people to promote ideas. And one of the major goals is to build some shared understanding of the successes and challenges with project development. We think this is the right move, given some past feedback CC Power has received from stakeholders, and we want a chance to listen more formally through this workshop. So there's going to be a lot to it. We have an agenda developed, and we're finalizing the date, which is either November 7th or maybe November 3rd. As you know, your guys' schedules are quite challenging, so we're working to find the right balance between everybody's schedules. And we're targeting to do the meeting in San Jose and it's going to run from 9 a.m. to 2:30. We'll invite guest speakers, and then we'll invite a lot of stakeholders who historically have already provided input to CC Power to make sure that they can attend and are aware of this workshop. The goals are listening and public input, and there'll be a chance for pre and post comment and input from parties. And we want diverse stakeholder input and consideration. And then, as I indicated, to build more of a shared understanding about project development, particularly what defines a successful project, hence the name Getting It Built Right. That said, we know that the overall scope of project development in California remains quite challenging. So we do want to touch on the challenges so that everybody's understanding how we're approaching that, how we work with the developers to navigate these challenges, et cetera. So with that, I know some of you may have particular comments here, and Chair Balachandran, if you're open to it, we could do board comment now.
Yep. Board members, please raise your virtual hand. All right. I'm not seeing any. I do, do see two raised. So we'll go with Mike Hyams, San Francisco, followed by Rob Shaw, 3CD.
Okay, I think I figured out my complicated mute system over here. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. I just briefly want to thank Alex, our general manager, for time spent on getting this together, and the planning that's going into this, and generally is that we're excited and supportive of your proposed approach, and looking forward to having a productive discussion in early November.
Thank you. Rob Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. No, and I also wanted to echo and say it's an important step, and Alex and Chair Balachandran, thank you for taking the effort to do this. 3CE adopted a project selection criteria that addressed a number of these questions in June, and we utilized a similar approach, trying to get diverse stakeholder outreach and those direct conversations, and they were very beneficial across the board, and was actually able to come up with a process that I think both building and trade councils, as well as general contractor associations and kind of environmental justice associations were all ultimately in favor of the process. So the stakeholder approach, hearing those different viewpoints, is an important step. And my question to Alex would be, what support would you be looking to the board for? What would you like us to be helping to prepare as part of those conversations in November? But thank you.
Girish, would you like me to respond? Yeah.
Please.
Well, hey, thanks, Director Shaw. It's great to have your input, and congrats on getting those criteria together. You're not the only one. I've got a few people, CCAs, who've shared how they've been also navigating sort of, quote, getting it built right and what that means. And I think it's helping inform our shared vision here. What I think would make sense for all of you is to make sure that we have the right people in the room for this important workshop. And so to the extent that I can, I will share what our distribution list looks like. We're offering free lunch for anyone who's willing to attend. So if that's not an incentive, I think having you or other key deputies from the CCAs in the room will also be really important. And then we want to have the right conversation. And as some of you know, the plan for the workshop is Sonoma Clean Power CEO Jeff Cyphers is going to moderate. And so he's worked with me carefully on crafting an agenda and really focusing on a good listening structure, so that we go into it with a clean slate to really get the ideas from key stakeholders. And then at the end of it, there'll probably need to be some reconciliation of the many ideas afterwards. And he wants to think about if people may want to file comments, or if we want to come back to the board with a report later on. So some of that opinion is still open. But I think right now for you and others, please just help us promote the event. And in fact, some of your staff are already in the loop on a promotions plan. And once we pin down the date, which again, we're pretty close to doing that for early November, the save the date's going to roll out. We have a initial distribution list. And so your staff will have a chance to forward that and amplify that. Thank you.
Alex. We'll have Director Marshall from PCE, followed by Director Sears from Valley.
Thank you. And so happy to be with you all. I had one quick logistics item, which is I'm assuming that I did not need to be sworn in for this board since this is my first meeting. So assuming that we're all good there, we'll move on from that. I did want to, Alex, you and I had a chance to chat briefly about this, and I enjoyed meeting you last couple weeks ago. What do you guys see as the potential or intended outcome of this meeting? Because as you know, Alex, and I think some of the others around the table, we've also been approached by it's an environmental alliance, justice alliance group that I think Rob is probably the same group that has approached you. And there's been ongoing pressure that predates me from a former board member really seeking to have CC Power take some specific policy positions. So if I should take this offline and learn from another one of you, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, I think, well, let's address the first question. Brittany?
Yeah, so per the CC Power JPA, it is the CEO or the general manager of the member that automatically becomes the board
Awesome.
director. So no
Thank
need
you.
to swear.
Welcome, Sean.
Thank you. Just want to make sure.
Yes, I neglected to do that. Sean, better late than never. Welcome to your first CC Power board meeting.
No worries.
Great to see you. Yeah, I think let's take it offline, especially the background.
Okay,
Several of us were involved in that, so we can get on a call. There's lots of documentation actually that we can send you to get you to
up
where
to
we are
speed.
now. Yeah.
Great.
And
Thank
then anything in terms of the actual workshop, feel free to reach out to Alex. He's
Yeah.
keeping us updated.
We did send a couple of suggested speakers and, content suggestions your way, Alex, and either date works for us. So
Thank you, Sean, Director Marshall, and also thank you for the recommendations. I've seen the email, and I'll do follow up with that. I appreciate it.
okay. All right. Thanks, everybody.
I'll note that Director Chassett has joined us, and we are in the General Manager's report. We're talking about the Getting It Built Right event discussion. We're going around the board asking for any comments on the one slide that our General Manager put up, after which I see one public comment. So with that, I'll go to Director Sears, followed by Director Kozlowski.
Yeah, thanks. And Alex, thanks for pulling this together. This was a commitment that was made early on, and pleased to see that CC Power is following up on this. One just quick observation or question, or maybe it's an opportunity, but stakeholders is one group, but it strikes me as this might be an opportunity for sort of an educational opportunity for those who are not necessarily involved in our selection, sort of site selection and how we go about building it right, but just to hear that we're engaged in this process. So I'm thinking some of the regulatory agencies and other state agencies might benefit from being in the room to kind of hear the discussion and hear that CC Power is taking this seriously. That's all for me.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Sears.
Director Kozlowski, alternate Director Kozlowski.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. I only sat in, I think it's my second time sitting in for Jeff. It's been over a year. Couple of comments. One is I second the Director Sears talking about doing a little education. This sounds a lot like an integrated resource plan public input meeting. And so we always combined a little bit of education of the public with asking questions, getting input. The second item is, Jeff, we'll be putting on a public and stakeholder input meeting on our geozone. So even though it's specific to one type of generation, we'll be doing it next month. So he'll probably have some learning from that might help facilitate or work on the format and logistics of how we run the meeting in November. I think that the last item is on the, as we promote this, might want to say, I'm new to this, so I haven't discussed this with Jeff, but might want to promote what the it is. So what is the scope? Are we talking about just generation? Or are we talking about transmission, interconnection, building transmission lines? You know, what's the scope of it? So the right stakeholders know that they should be coming to this or not. So that's it.
Great comments. Thank you. I can see that our general manager is taking notes, so we can incorporate that and feed this back to you with further updates. This. So let's go to, I'm not seeing any other hands raised at the director level. So let's go to the public. We have Josh Brock.
Apologies, board. I did not intend to raise my hand, so I have no comment to the board. Please accept my apology for that accident there.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to the next item on the GM report, which is offshore wind.
All right, so this is a fun one. And Amy, when you have a moment, let's pop that up on the screen, please. So as many of you recall, we've undertook an offshore wind RFI. We did extensive interviews. We worked with sub teams. We talked to developers. We talked to a lot of stakeholders about it. And next slide, please. And so what the board approved several months ago was for us to advance a plan of doing a large RFO on offshore wind, but doing it in the future, far enough in the future that a lot of the developers who are still gearing up to get into contract on these things are ready, with more binding pricing, more visibility to port structures, more visibility to transmission, more visibility to permitting. So a lot of that work in just signaling the large RFO is happening now. And one of the first and important steps I just wanted to share to give you a feel today was understanding the scale. And so what we're doing here, and you can see in this mocked up example, is we're soliciting input from all of the CCA Power members and probably from other potential CCAs and partners to build a aggregated demand curve for procurement. Now, what this does is it validates that the scale of our procurement is such that we can achieve some of the scale needed for offshore wind. So offshore wind is a new industry for California, as many of you know, and scale is tricky. But a lot of reports, including those from national labs like NREL, indicate that if we do achieve the scale, certain price points would be achievable. So what we're doing here is we're asking members what their procurement appetites would be under different price point scenarios. And so we're using some of the NREL cost curves and then other sort of approximations of other resource costs to get a sense of how interested members would be. I think one of the main things to focus on, though, is that if the cost projections from NREL, which look favorable, can play out, you know, really how much appetite is there? And this highlights some of the benefits of building a demand curve this way. Is not all of you have the same portfolios. So every one of you has a resource planning group that can look at the unique operating performance of Morro Bay wind or offshore wind from Humboldt and decide at what price that's a good fit for you. Some of you may have more storage or less storage, and the unique profiles of these resources could be valuable. And they're also anticipated to come on at different times. So I think I highlight that this bottoms up demand curve formation really gives your CCAs more control over your resource portfolio and highlights how you can more rationally decide what makes sense at what cost point for your portfolio. So this is pretty neat, but in this example, what you see is we add up, we've created sort of 4 pretend demand curves, although I have seen some actual demand curves from CCAs, and these are, you know, sort of sort of in terms of the shape of the curve, a little bit reflective of what we're seeing. And then you get this aggregated demand curve. And in this case, again, this is just an example. It shows that the scale just of CC Power and some of our partners could be sizable. And as many of you know, your loads collectively are larger than other somewhat similar JPAs like SCAPA or NCPA. And so we wanted to make sure we could get to scale. And this is the first step. And the actual demand curves we build will be more nuanced, reflective of the different wind energy areas and different online years. And then once I have some of this information to start to signal scale, I'll be proceeding with the plan you approved and starting to meet with the offshore wind developers. A likely initial meeting for them is October 3rd and 4th. There's an offshore wind conference in Boston that's got a lot of the right participants planning to attend. So that could be a time where CC Power starts to more formally engage with them. And we may structure some sort of legal MOUs or structures so that we can collaborate with them in ways that are appropriate and reduce risk as they collaborate with us on contract designs for this future RFO. So I'm hoping this looks fun. And again, this is also pursuant to your direction. So for those of you who are hearing from your procurement staff that CC Power is asking for these bottoms up demand curves, you know, this is what it's about. And I wanted to request your help in encouraging your staff to help us build this aggregate demand curve down the road.
Thank you, General Manager Morris. Let me open it up for comments from our board. Please raise your virtual hand. I'm not seeing any. Don't see any hands raised in the attendee list. So thank you very much.
Chair Balachandran, can I add one item really fast? Yeah, or one point to this. I also had a chance to connect with the governor's team and some of the staff in the governor's office who have been, you know, working on this concept of a central procurement entity. And what was relayed to me was that, you know, their central procurement entity is designed as a sort of backup option for procuring resources that they think may make sense for the state, but that might not otherwise be procured. And I think what I heard in that meeting is this bottoms up approach seems pretty good. And they're not intending to get ahead of the load serving entities per se. And again, there's still a lot of shaping of that policy and if it passes to be done, but it highlighted that this effort is valuable and in line with the state, and they're not interested in undercutting it at this time, as far as I could understand. So I think there's a lot of value in us moving forward down this path.
General Manager, let me provide you my comments and then we'll move to Director Marshall from RCEA.
Great.
I think the direction was to do an RFI and just move this forward. I like your timeline of 2025 and 26. I would like for us to think about this in context of a lot more procurement that needs to be done to meet that 183,000 megawatt target, including geothermal, solar, storage, and transmission build out too. And at least in my mind, when I think about this, affordability is also an issue that needs to be baked in. I know these are all issues that we and the PUC and the governor are thinking about, but I do want you and us to think about that in context also as we continue down this path. And since we're talking about 25, 26, I think this is a nice high-level outline for conversations with different stakeholder groups, but I'm sure that you'll be updating us in the quarters to come as to what's going on. I'd also encourage you to interface with CalCCA. They are taking a lead role on some of these discussions, representing pretty much all of us. So, and I know you're doing that, so just thank you. Director Marshall from RCA.
Yeah, I'll just say, you know, if it's not obvious, we're very excited and supportive of offshore wind as far as a resource for local and regional benefits. But I just wanted to explicitly say that, you know, supportive of CC Power taking sort of a leadership role and being sort of proactive and not reactive in kind of the procurement element of that, because it does take, you know, larger scale, you know, multi LSC procurement, I think is going to be necessary. And so I'm happy to see us not sort of being on the sidelines in that.
Thank you. General Manager Morris, do you want to move to the next item?
Okay. All right. So the next item is the Inflation Reduction Act. And thanks, Amy. So we're well underway with evaluating the Inflation Reduction Act, and what we're doing is looking for opportunities that may be a fit for CC Power or relevant for you as members in CCAs. The general strategy was to understand it, start to understand opportunities that are a fit, and get some version of a short list, so to speak. The short list is not actual projects, but it's ideas or target categories of technologies where we might be in a position to maximize benefits from the Inflation Reduction Act. Once we have a sense there, this could lead to recommended new projects. And I think these recommendations, if we do have them, would come forward, you know, sooner or later this year, Q3 and Q4. So we've activated multiple teams. We have a sub-team that's working on it actively. We have legal counsel. And then we also have our resource planning working group, which is sort of the standing meeting where we share ideas that we're looking at for feedback from all the procurement staff in the CCAs. So I wanted to just give you a quick update that this shorter list is starting to emerge, still not final, but it is pretty exciting. And so what we've looked at is some of these opportunities with direct pay, which is a way to sort of benefit ratepayers through some of the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act. And how achievable is that? It's relatively new in terms of implementation, and it's hinging on a lot of guidance that's been rolled out from the Treasury. So as that gets clarified, we're in a better position to really look at what are the right ownership and direct pay options that would benefit you guys or be a fit. We're also looking at how this policy supports a lot of, I would say, novel or emerging clean energy technologies, and how there might be opportunities to capture or pursue that. One possible role for CC Power might be in this bulk buy role or program administration. And so we're looking at that in this project. There's other opportunities in it as well. There's, you know, I think hard to wrap your head around ideas like hydrogen and carbon capture and sequestration. And so we're continuing to look at those as well. Again, it's a little less certain where and how those would be a fit for CC Power and CCAs, but of course we're going to actively review it. So I wanted to just start talking about it. And then also related to this, we're starting to get what I would call unsolicited ideas coming forward to us. So, you know, they may be a fit with these goals of the IRA project we're doing, and we can route that into the Inflation Reduction Act. And the step after that, if we really pin something down, would be to recommend an official project that we would pursue. And that would kick it into a sort of more regimented structure where we want people to sort of opt in and see if they want to participate. And it would require signing on to what we would call a phase 2 participation agreement. So all of that work is happening. And I wanted to thank those of you who have staff members helping, and thank those of you who participate in the resource planning working group, because you'll see this is rich and tricky decision making, but I think we're making good progress. Just one final note, now that we have some of our shorter lists of targets, we're going to cross-reference that with our legal counsel, who is an expert at, you know, availing oneself of the benefits of the IRA. So really looking at it from the lens of, does this achieve that goal of maximizing benefits the way we hope? And is it a good fit? Once we have a sense of that, you know, we really want to know if if we could achieve that, do the members want to, does it fit with your portfolios and needs? And so all those steps will be playing out over the next month or so. I'd welcome discussion on this, and I've summarized, as many of you know, the Inflation Reduction Act is a massive bill with many moving parts. I wouldn't say I'm an expert by any means, but I have come a long way up the learning curve with the help of the team, and I'm happy to discuss any piece of this work.
Great. As this is an information update, we'll take some input from our directors. Wait for some raised hands. Okay, Director Shaw, 3CE.
Thank you, Chair. Alex, two quick questions. One, who is the council that you're working with? And then two, as part of your focus areas, will you also look at detailing a roadmap of just which federal and state entities will be responsible for which pots of money, which seems to be driving a lot of the confusion, in addition to sort of that tax and treasury guidance that has been evolving through the summer?
Yeah, the great question, Director Shaw. So our legal counsel is Norton Rose Fulbright with Keith Martin. If anybody's interacted with him, you know that he's a true expert, deeply versed and often working more on the deal side of things. So having him in an advisory role here is very helpful, because what we're really asking him to do is sanity check our work before we move down into the further diligence process. He also is very versed with what guidance is rolling out and where pain points are in actual contract success and project success. So to your second question, where's the money sit? Who's responsible? My understanding is he has a lot of visibility to really where things are stalling out and struggling versus where there's a clear path for parties to move forward. And I think the story he'll share, and I don't mean to put words in his mouth, would be, things have sped up a lot over the last 3 months as the Treasury guidance has rolled out. So while each agency that has some of the money has its own sort of idiosyncrasies and style, knowing the specifics of how the tax credits will work has really been the key. And that related more to the Treasury versus the specific agency that's doling out the money. One challenge, though, he does highlight is how quickly will you get a direct pay check? If you don't get it quickly, you have to have short-term carrying costs for the project while you're waiting for that money. And in some cases, you may be filing every year. For instance, with the production tax credit, you may have this issue every year as you sort of file to get the direct pay amounts. So there's a lot of trickiness and detail in all of these deals. But I think, CC Power hopefully is starting to wrap its head around it and building the right structure for making an informed decision. Yeah. Sorry if I didn't answer your question more specifically about the agencies, but that's what I know so far.
No, it's perfect. Thank you, Alex.
Okay.
Not seeing any other raised hands, and none on the attendee side too for public comment. General Manager, I expect that we'll have, thank you for the timeline. I think this is great. So Q3, Q4 to bring something back. Really looking forward to it. Great.
Yeah, I am excited too. And it's very fun learning, and I do see opportunities here. Okay. All right. So shifting from the fun stuff to new policy formation, Amy. So this is actually very important too. We can pull the slides up. I wanted to just emphasize that we're further codifying the operating policies for members. So this work is designed to ensure you and your staff have a clear, clean sense of how to participate in CC Power, how to get value, how to provide the direction you want. We have some of these policies sort of in a guidance implementation phase now, but eventually what I would like to do with your blessing is come back to the board to get a lot of these officially approved so that we really know what the operating rules are. And again, these are not all of the policies for CC Power, including like expense policies. These are operating policies for members. So I wanted to just give you a sense of some of them. And really what we're trying to do is ensure clear and facile participation. We want to make sure we cover and assign costs appropriately. So for instance, if we start to explore a project that some members are interested in, but some aren't, we want the cost to flow properly to the parties that are interested. We also want to preserve this cafeteria menu approach for projects where no one's obligated into any of it. It's you opt in. And then we want to make CC Power, smooth and effective and expedient to deal with. So we want to get the maximum value we can. And then we're also ensuring compliant operations. So some of the policies this translates to is a sort of codified policy on project exploration and development, where we have official phases of projects that have different levels of rules associated with it. We have cost sharing and costs inclusion policies, and for phase 2 and phase 3 of that project exploration and development process. We have these participation agreements now. We have a working group good actor code of conduct. So that helps everyone participate and manage the information that they have access to properly. We also have some dispute resolution and working group operating principles that we've established. So all of these are helping set norms and protect both your staff and CC Power. And I think it's going to help ensure really clean work when we move it forward. And I'm personally thankful for everybody's staff who've had a chance to review this, and as we've developed it, seen the logic of it, and we're rolling a lot of this stuff out informally. And again, Chair Balachandran, my request would be the chance to bring this more formally to the board if appropriate, so you all can kind of really ensure that you're comfortable with these sort of rules of the road we're establishing.
Yep. I think you are as you mentioned, you're working with some working groups on this. Is that true?
Yeah. So the main working, these apply to different areas of the structures in CC Power. Some of them are applying in working groups, and we have input directly from the staff involved or the participants. Some of them we haven't field tested yet. A good example is phase 2 and phase 3 cost and cost sharing. This has occurred ad hoc previously, but we're establishing more clear upfront set of rules for the next time we get into phase 2 on a project, so that everybody goes in clear, knows how costs are doled out, particularly for phase 2. And as many of you know, phase 2 is sort of the RFO and active contracting phase, where parties who are involved will have visibility to important information that we need to make sure everybody's clear on who gets access to that information and the option to join a deal at that time.
That's great. Let me just share a little bit. I would like for you, great that you bring this up. I think it's what we identified in our strategic plan. Really glad that you're making so much progress on it. I think as an agency going through its maturity cycle, this is essential. I'd also say, let's not have the perfect be the enemy of the good. Get something in, we can always relaunch it a year or 2 from now. I've worked with other JPAs where they've gone through about 3 or 4 iterations over a 10-year period to really settle into things, so we can learn from their experience. I know you have contacts with both some of the larger JPAs in the state, and yeah, look forward to bringing this to the board. Let's open it up to the board for comments. Please raise your virtual hand. All right, Alternate Director Hyams, please.
Yeah, I actually think this is very exciting that we're making progress on this too. I think having a common understanding of how we're going to work together on projects is going to be really important, given the large number of us. I had a question for the general manager, which is if you have a vision for sort of where these policies will live down the road. Is this, I don't know if I don't believe we currently have like a members side website or anything like that. I'm not sure if that's the kind of thing you're thinking of, or.
Yeah, great question, Alternate Director Hyams. Thank you. So yes, we are in the process of giving full access to all of these policies for your staff or anyone who participates in CC Power as a member. The specific interface right now is that I share the file. But what we'll have going forward is through the CC Power website, members can enter into a share drive, with the right credentials, and they'll always have access to these files. They'll always have access to all of the all member materials, and that would include the resource planning working group, the shared services working group, other statistical or data information we keep that we may have available, etc. So all of that would be available. And then for those of you who are in projects, you'll also be have your staff able to access project specific files that not everyone would have. A good example of that would be if you're involved in the long duration storage projects, your staff may want to see the quarterly reports or the milestones or the contracts, and they'll have access to that through this member portal. So that's being set up. There's a couple pieces to that. We have the website, we have the database, and now you need to connect them. And then we also need some sort of validation tool. And what that may look like is a membership database tool like Membership Works as an example. So we're going to look at that. And then we connect them, and parties can get in and get the right information they need. There may be, and down the road, I expect there'll be a lot of information stored there that's available to members. And then we'll have to wall off the information that's only appropriate for specific parties, which we'll do. And then, as you know, separately, CC Power has its own SharePoint to store files, or share drive to store files for our staff to use.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
I don't see any other questions from our directors. Public comment? I don't see any raised hands, so we'll come back here, and I think you have one slide left, General Manager Morris.
Yeah, so again, thanks everybody. Sorry to speak for so long. Just wanted to give you a sense of what's coming up. I know many of you have children and you're starting school already, and fall's coming. It's just incredible how fast the year is moving. And CC Power, it feels like there is a lot of momentum building. And so I wanted to give you a quick sense of some of the groundwork we're laying for additional activities and more that's going to come. This is in no particular order, but I may speak to some of these as perhaps more exciting and important. So one is looking at our firm clean resource contracts and moving those through a prepay process to capture some savings. That I refer to that as the CCCFA benefits. That's maybe the wrong language, but I think many of you understand what this prepay process is on these resources. And so actively pursuing that with the firm clean resources, which is our geothermal projects. We're also beefing up the sort of financial detailing and visibility we want for you. This is happening in a couple ways. More frequent financial reports, and then also project specific balancing accounts, so that all of you can track every dollar, I think, more frequently. And we have all that information, but we just want to make it as accessible as possible. And then these balancing accounts are also a critical part of the contract structure for many of you. And so that's being set up with our accounting team. I'm also excited that the shared services working group has met. Thanks to those of you, including alternate director Hyams, who have helped lead that and start to think through what are some appropriate target shared services that we could pursue for joint action. The goal here is sort of looking at ways that joint action makes sense for the CCAs and on the shared services side, and we're making progress there. And I think what we'll have soon is a short list of projects to pursue, and that could be valuable to your members. We're going to run a quick RFI on storage opportunities. The goal here is to address member needs and inform us with a sense of what's available for additional storage if needed. As I mentioned, the IRA recommendations are going to be coming forth. And then we'll have a more standard dashboard and financial reporting structure for these meetings. So it'll be a little easier for everybody to get a sense of it. CC Power is in the process of staffing up, just one staffer per the budget. So hopefully I'll have that by the next time we meet. And then, as I mentioned, also the member database and access portal is something we're working on. We're having really good collaboration with CalCCA. And I think there's a lot of value that you all have invested in CalCCA, and they have a strong team. And there's occasional opportunities where collaboration can make sense just to reduce duplicative work. So CalCCA has been a great partner so far, and we're formalizing a structure for liaisoning with them. And then lastly, we're going to open up the JPA document, and we're going to continue to tune these operating policies. It's not, this is partly probably just a sort of normal cursory review and modernization of the JPA document, but we may look to do some strategic improvements for how the JPA functions, and that would be part of that project as well. So again, all of this is actually part of the work plan you approved with the budget, but it's nice to see it from my standpoint getting closer to reality. And it'll be even nicer when we start to check some of this off and say that it's complete and done. We're not there yet, but I wanted to give you a sense of it, and I'd welcome any feedback at this time, Chair Balachandran.
Right, let me open it up to the directors. If they have any feedback on these upcoming items. Don't see any. I'll just say very exciting, General Manager Morris. That's a lot on your plate. I think looking forward to having some staffing to increase your bandwidth. I think the operating policies that you're putting together, it's just building capacity. And then some of the things you bring up with the IRA opportunities and prepay opportunities, there may be some early wins that we can bring to the entire membership while still keeping our eye on some long-term issues. So very nice. Still don't see any. So no questions or comments. Anything from the public? No. So thank you, General Manager Morris. Great update. So we'll move to item 7, discussion of any individual member items. If you do have any, please raise your hand. Don't see any. So Brittany, can we go to adjournment at this point?
Yes, you can.
Okay. CC Power meeting is adjourned at 1:50. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.